Dawwal il-moħħna u ħeġġeġ il-qalbna bl-ispirtu tiegħek biex dak kollu li aħna nagħmlu f'din il-Kamra jkun ta' glorja lilek u ta' ġid tal-poplu tagħna. Issirna li inti fis-smawiet jitqadas ismek tiġi saltnatek ikolli trid int kif is-semera fl-art. Slim għalik Marija, bil-grazzja mimlija, s-Sinjur miegħek imberka inti fost in-nisa nbierek il-frott tal-ġuf tiegħek Ġesu. Glorja lil Missil il-Liben u l-Ispiritu Santu.
Kif kien bil-Satja
Spiritu Santu.
Iva, mela, skont il-frejm il-lum san nkunu qegħdin insegwu indirizz lill-Kamra tad-Deputati mill-President tal-Ukrajna, l-Eċċellenza tiegħu Volodymyr Zelenskyy li se jkun qiegħed jingħaqad magħna permezz ta' video link. Wara l-indirizz tiegħu se jkun qed jagħmel diskorsi osra kemm il-Prim Ministru u kemm ukoll il-Kap tal-Oppożizzjoni. Skont il-ftehim mill-ħuq mistieden issa il-membri tal-medja biex jitlu ftit fis-sala. I now have the honor to virtually welcome among us all Vladimir Zelenskyy, the President of Ukraine. And before inviting him to make his address to the House of Representatives, I would like to make a few remarks. As Speaker of the Maltese Parliament, I note with great appreciation the fact that Your Excellency have chosen and worked hard towards reaching out to parliamentarians across the European Union and beyond to spread your nation's message. This is clear recognition that national parliaments embody the spirit, the thoughts and feelings of a nation, and is noted and appreciated. Regrettably, news that reaches us from Ukraine can only be described as heartbreaking, evoking feelings of deep sadness and anger. However, if we fail to act upon these feelings, we risk being complacent. Excellency, as you are surely aware, Malta's neutrality as entrenched in our Constitution does not allow us to contribute militarily to conflicts such as the one you are enduring. Nonetheless, this does not mean that we are turning a blind eye to the humanitarian crisis which your country is going through and which are witnessing every day. In this regard, as a nation, we remain committed to provide humanitarian assistance to your citizens, both on the ground and also locally. Our neutral status is complemented by a firm belief that conflicts should first and foremost be addressed through diplomacy, including parliamentary diplomacy, and this is where I believe that national parliaments have a crucial role to play. By their nature, parliaments are the fora where different interests and opinions come together and following exchange of views find a compromise. This is the essence of democracy. I am a firm believer in the power of dialogue, with parliamentary diplomacy being crucial and an effective tool to promote dialogue and to find equitable solutions. I strongly reiterate the stand I took a few weeks ago at the Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and also the Conference of Speakers of the European Union that dialogue between the parties in the conflict is essential. I therefore urge the members of both the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine and the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation to engage in such a dialogue which will hopefully lead to peace between their respective countries. As parliaments, we have the duty to stand ready to facilitate this dialogue, not least in the various interparliamentary forums in which we are active. Thank you. I now give the floor to His Excellency Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition and the members of the Parliament and the people of Malta. What I've just heard is, I would like to say that it is an honor for me to speak before your Parliament, but I would like to say that we don't have a conflict, we have a war going on. This is why words are not speaking these days, but shelling, torturing, and killings. And this is happening not between Russia and Ukraine, but on the territory of Ukraine, on our sovereign territory. And it was Russia who came to our territory and they are killing us. This is regarding the conflict. But nevertheless, we're doing our best to protect our land and our people. And we're doing all it takes to make sure that we bring peace to our land, to our Ukrainian land, I would like to emphasize. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to address all of you today. These days, you are commemorating the 80th anniversary of the event. So the Malta battle in the Second World War was one of the most decisive. The resilience of your people, their resistance in many ways defined the future of the Mediterranean. Malta stood against the severe siege and bombardment, and together with the allies of the anti-Hitler coalition managed not only to protect itself, but also to become the forepost, the front of the freedom and play the role in liberating Europe. Today's event on our continent remind me of your heroic story. So the resilience and resistance of Malta in 1940, 1942 defined the future of Europe, the same way the resilience and strength of our people, not the members of the Russian Duma, but ordinary rank and file, resilient people decide whether the freedom will win again on our territory, on our continent, in combating tyranny. Tyranny has a long-going ambitions. By attacking Ukraine, Russia only started the aggression against the United Europe, and I think you can feel this better than other peoples in terms of the evil that is being committed. 2,250 missiles have hit our communities and cities in more than 2 months. 277 planes were in our Ukrainian sky, were noticed in Ukrainian sky. The bombardment doesn't stop neither during the day nor the night. Just yesterday, when Charles Michel, the president of the EU, visited our warm southern city of Odessa and met Prime Minister Shmyhal of Ukraine, he had to go to the bomb shelter because Russia started another air raid, air attack, and hit Odessa on the 9th of May. I think this is the first High Representative of European Union who was continuing his dialogue with his vis-a-vis sheltering in the bomb shelter. When the Europeans are commemorating the victims of the Second World War and celebrating the Europe's Day, just in Odessa Oblast, 25 missiles were fired by Russia, and all of them civilian targets. The Russian planes keep bombing with aviation bombs, and phosphorus bombs at the buildings where they know for sure that there are no armed forces. These are just ordinary citizens who are hiding there. This is just a blunt terror. Since the beginning of the full-fledged attack, they're trying to block our cities on our land. They have organized the real hell in the city of Mariupol. They're attacking it from the sea and from the land. They have destroyed more than 90% of all buildings. Before the war, it was a 500,000 citizen city, and they have created the artificial famine. They've blocked access to of water, food supplies, medication. Did Russia know what was happening in Mariupol? Yes, they did, but the marching order was to destroy the city and to kill as many people as possible. The city of Mariupol and its defenders still continue their resistance, and the plant of Azovstal, where we are using all possible diplomatic instruments to rescue them. But Russia doesn't allow for any of the proposed options. We have asked our partners to provide weapons in order to unblock Mariupol and rescue both civilians and the military personnel. But the amount of weapons that we need to unblock Mariupol have not been provided. What it means in it that you can understand this by remembering in the 1942 how Spitfire, British Spitfire played the role in the skies of Malta. Thanks God, Britain and the USA, they implemented that mission with the Spitfire, which have helped destroy the ambition of the aggressor around your island. And with each new mission, we need to destroy the ambition of the current aggressor who wants to conquer Ukraine and other European countries. We need planes, helicopters, special artillery, and other weapons, because now, just like 80 years ago, the future of Europe is decided on the battlefield. Ladies and gentlemen, the nation of Malta, as a result of the invasion of Ukraine, 226 children were killed, thousands of adults were killed, and this is just official records. More than 12 million Ukrainians were displaced, 5 million had to flee from the territory of Ukraine. And I think you understand perfectly well why this war needs to be finished as soon as possible, why Russia should be forced as soon as possible to free the conquered Ukrainian territory. There are only three instruments to do this. First, and I mentioned about this already, this is the weapon that allows us to stand on the battlefield and rescue our people, which who are being killed by Russian military on the daily basis, day and night. The longer we procrastinate, the more deaths we have in terms of providing weapon. Then second is the sanction against Russia, not just to go in itself, but to bring uh, uh, the reality of the loss of revenues from the energy resources, which is the most painful for Russia, and also have the blocking of the bank transactions for Russia. The aggressor has to be hurting and be damaged as much as possible, although Russia also blocked our ports in the Black Sea and the Azov Sea. And this means the full blockade of our agricultural exports. It means that there will be a crisis on the global food supply market if we cannot export wheat, barley, sunflower, sun oil. Then it means that the people on the north of Africa and in Asia, they will be lacking food and the prices will go up. What will happen later? There could be new chaos and new migration crisis, and I think you can feel this crisis in the neighboring regions to Malta. So we have to act now. We have to act quickly we have to put the embargo on the Russian oil mixes and oil products, and this is important in order to stop the Russian invasion in Ukraine. I know that for you and for other countries, European countries, this is a very sensitive topic, because the vessels under your flag are used to transport also Russian oil, but each euro and each dollar that you can earn will be accompanied by the big losses if you cannot stop the food crisis, but also the migration crisis. If when the Russian aggression will go further into Europe, after thousands of crimes, after thousands of killings, looting, and rape, so accepting and welcoming people with Russian passport, formally and informally linked to Russian Federation, are very dangerous things, and it is dangerous for all Europeans, including for Malta people. So it is time to stop the privileges for Russia, starting from the privileged passports, golden passports, and dual citizenship. Please don't allow to abuse yourself, to abuse your island. Please do your checks. Who of the Russians are trying to hide using your jurisdiction and your land? Please block their real estate, their yachts, their accounts who belong to Russians, the businesses of the Russian IT and blockchain companies and propaganda channels. So this is not just business for them. These are entities linked to the aggressive Russian state. Just like 80 years ago, the free world, in a united manner, was fighting against the tyranny, just the same like all other people. We have to fight, and we are now together with you to make sure that freedom will win. Everyone has to contribute to this victory. And I'm grateful to your decision, to the decision that you have already made, and the future decisions in support of the protection of Europe. And I'm sure that soon we will be able to develop our cooperation in the United Europe on a new level when Ukraine will receive the candidate status and also the full-fledged membership in the European Union. I do count on your support. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Malta. Slava Ukraini. Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you. I now invite the Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Robert Abela, to make his address.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Your Excellency. I join the Speaker in thanking you, President Zelenskyy, for addressing us as a House of Representatives, for giving us also this detailed first-hand account of the struggles and the hardship that the Ukrainian people are going through as we speak. And as you rightly mentioned, Mr. President, too many innocent children, women, men, innocent civilians have lost their lives already. At this hour of need, rest assured that our thoughts and prayers are with you all. The Maltese government and also the Maltese people are by your side as we continue to respect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of your country, as also bound by the UN Charter. And although as an island we are small, also bound by our constitution on the principles of neutrality and non-alignment, and also geographically far apart from the war, this does not mean that we are silent, blind, and deaf to your suffering. On the contrary, we will speak where and when it matters, in international fora and within the structures of the European Union. We will continue to advocate for peace and for an immediate ceasefire. And we will do so by our actions as well as by our words. We are deeply concerned about the humanitarian situation in Ukraine. And in the face of this tragedy, we will continue to provide assistance in the best manner we can. When called up and from our limited resources, we will keep assisting as we have already done, through financial means and also in kind, including through the provision of non-lethal equipment, through the supply of medicines and the supply of medical services, whilst also contributing to the EPF, the European Peace Facility. We also pledged the necessary support to the small community of Ukrainians in Malta that have fled the conflict in their home country. We welcome them, and we will keep welcoming all people who need support, and we'll also continue to help them to settle within our communities. Because we have also learned and understood in recent years that no matter how far away the conflict, or rather the war, is, its effects stretch far and wide. Effects which hurt us financially, economically, psychologically, and also socially. In this case, the reality is that we are still emerging from the negative impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has unfortunately amplified these negative effects even more, which meant also that we, as a government, had to intervene to mitigate the consequences of such. And if there is one other assurance which I can give you, President Zelenskyy, it is that the pain and suffering of the Ukrainian people is not falling on deaf ears. We will continue to implement agreed EU-level actions to put pressure for diplomatic talks to materialize with a view to ending the hostilities. We have also, on the issue of the golden passports, which you raised, we have frozen the applications for citizens having Russian or emanating from the Belarus, and we have also initiated a process which ended in the revocation of the granting of a citizenship which had been granted to a Russian individual who was eventually impacted by the sanctions. So we have taken concrete and effective action there as well. We will keep coordinating with our partners around the world who share a common view with us on the principles which I have outlined before on our position as regards this war, which unfortunately is materializing before us. And our view here is that the only acceptable solution to this conflict is the withdrawal of Russian troops from the Ukraine, followed by dialogue and effective peace talks. The attack on Ukraine is also an attack on the guiding principles of the United Nations and international law, which we both cherish and uphold. President Zelenskyy, allow me to once again thank you, to salute your efforts and those of your brave fellow Ukrainian brothers and sisters, of your countrymen who had to leave everything behind them to defend their country. Their efforts do not go unnoticed. You are not alone. Malta stands with the Ukraine. Thank you.
I now invite the Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Bernard Grech, to make his address.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Opposition Party of Christian Democratic Inspiration, we would like to express our solidarity with the people of Ukraine as represented by you, their democratically elected president, in this hour of need. As you have repeatedly and publicly stated, Mr. President, this war does not concern only Ukraine, but the entire free world. If the arbitrary attack and invasion of a Council of Europe state is allowed, this would mean that arbitrary and illegal actions in international law would go unpunished. We take pride in the fact that Roberta Metsola, President of the European Parliament and member of and MEP of our party, was the first to visit Ukraine and meet you to express the solidarity of the European Parliament with the people of Ukraine. Malta is the smallest member state of the European Union, but in spite of its modest size, during the Second World War, it was a beacon of light in a sea practically dominated by the power of darkness. We stood our ground against Nazism and fascism with success, as Ukraine did, which is why the George Cross decoration still embellishes our national flag. It is true that we are small. We cannot provide weapons and military equipment or substantial financial assistance, but we have a heart which reaches on to you. Besides, my party, together with the other parties in the European People's Party, are ready to defend and promote your aspiration to become members of the European Union. Malta itself, in the 90s, had to struggle and fight all sorts of opposition in order to achieve its aim of belonging fully to the European family. My party, then in government with Edi Fenekadami as its Prime Minister, was the prime mover to achieve that end against all odds. From our side, within this Parliament, but also within the European People's Party, to which we belong, we are prepared to support the political decision at EU level that your country be considered as an applicant country to join the Union and be given candidate status. This would enable the process to trigger off for the eventual membership of your country in the EU. Our country, whose geographical reality is different from yours, has adopted neutrality in its constitution. We cannot belong to a military alliance, but this does not mean that we do not have an opinion to express and a voice to be heard. Indeed, our membership of the EU, even though a neutral state, has not only given us huge financial benefits, but also a large measure of security without belonging to a military alliance. Ukraine's vocation in Europe, Ukraine's vocation is European. Its cultural identity and traditions are European. When our leader, George Bush-Olivier, soon after achieving independence for our country in 1964, led our country into the Council of Europe, has said, for us, is this returning home after a long absence. Here, we feel truly at home, joined with other members of the family who share our basic concepts and philosophy and who are prepared to build on the native heritage of this, our Europe. The same applies to Ukraine today. May you soon join the European Union. When that happens, Ukraine will be returning home after a long absence. During that absence, however, it shall be supported by friends and allies. Please, Mr. President, consider us as one of your friends and allies. God bless Ukraine and its resilient people. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellency, I also thank you for finding the time and opportunity to address us today. I'm confident that your message has been received, as you know, loud and clear, and will resonate with us long after today's address. Thank you very much. Niġu għal-minuti, hemm xi korrezzjonijiet ta' minuti. Il-minuti qed jiġu konfermati. Grazzi. Kunsens tal-atti. Informazzjoni mis-sedja qed impoġġu fuq il-mejda għall-Kamra. Sentenza tal-Qorti Ċivili Primola Sede Kostituzzjonali fil-kawża 109 tal-2020